You are not the first to pass this way.
Foolish mortals.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the inaugural episode of the experimental podcast communication of tomfoolery.
We call it Epcot.
I'm Lizzy.
I'm Lacey.
And I'm Lew.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We're actually really excited to be finally doing this. We've talked about it for a long time, and so it's very exciting to be able to get started.
Yes, I am excited too.
What do you think, Lew? You excited?
Yes.
Okay, good. I think the thing that we were going to lead off with was talking about the big announcement that came out of D23, which is, of course, Star Wars Land.
Dun 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 dun.
So, just first general reactions to the announcement?
Well, I mean, I can't imagine anybody saying anything other than it's just a really, really good thing for, the Disney parks. This is something that I think a lot of people have been wanting for a long time. So the fact that they're actually getting to it, it's actually, I think, a really, really, really good thing.
I think so, too. I know that with the, especially them, I don't know if you would call it a reboot, but the continuation of the saga is, definitely making more of a splash in that world. It's kind of renewing everybody's sort of love and interest in it. So it's very exciting, I think. Lew?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think it would be a really great part of the studio's revamp.
That's very necessary.
As someone who's not necessarily into the Star Wars world, I'm still a fan of what Disney has to offer when I'm in the parks. And so I'm excited about this land.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's something that ever since the Harry Potter first came out over at Universal, Disney's been, all the fans of Disney and Disney parks have been, when's our turn? When are we going to have the big epic land? And, then they announced Avatar and everyone's kind of like, okay, but when I think everyone was kind of thinking, why not Star Wars? Why are they doing Avatar and not Star Wars? So, of course, once Disney officially bought all the rights from Lucas and now that they're all owners of them, I think everyone was kind of like, all right, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. The fact that they finally announced it, I think it's excellent. I think it's going in exactly the right spot in Disney World. But I think it's going to be a really, really great, obviously, thing for Walt Disney World.
It's interesting. So what I think is super interesting is that both coasts are getting it at pretty much the same time. Can't think, I mean, maybe I'm just unsure, but I can't think of anything else that kind of got put in both at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, they've been in development at things that are like around the same time, but it was usually they test it out in one place first and then install it in the other. But to announce it that this one particular thing is going in both coasts at the same time, I think that's pretty unique.
Yeah, it's just definitely different for them in the way that they usually do their announcing. Which was, to me, and it's kind of been, maybe it's just because of D23, but I have noticed that they are announcing big things, huge things, really way earlier than they usually do.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true, because they want that big moment, at the expo that they have. And have, everybody all excited at the same time. Whereas before it was like they used to try to hide things as much as possible almost to, and they'd be denying things that were happening right in front of them, like the Bay Lake Tower and things like that. So ask out, like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, so I think it's definitely due to the D23.
Right. And especially with like Avatar Land too, that was announced like 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, it was quite a while
and it
ago.
Still doesn't open until 2017, I think. Is it 2017?
I believe so. I don't know the exact opening date, but yeah.
Which is quite, I mean, especially for Disney standards, like you said, the Bay Lake Tower, it was literally in front of people's faces, and they're like, what tower?
That's true.
So it's interesting that they took this this approach, or they seem to be taking this approach with the early announcement and then the build-up, because there aren't a whole lot of details that have come out about it yet. I know that there's the Millennium Falcon ride, and then there is they finally have announced that it's going to be, I think, groundbreaking, at least in Disney World, is supposed to be in January of 2016. Have you guys heard that too?
I believe so. Basically they, for the most part, they announced that, that the Osborne lights are and then and the same thing with the out at Disneyland that's closing as well in January. So those two things are closing at about the same time. Just makes me think that they're going to start almost at the same time on both coasts, but I don't know for sure.
And as far as we've been made aware, especially in Disneyland, it is going to be take over. I think the early rumor, the thing that first came out about it was that I think everybody was thinking that Toontown was going to go away.
Yeah, that rumor came out real quick and real fast.
But as far as that has come out in the weeks since the announcement, is that they are keeping Toontown but getting rid of Big Thunder Ranch. Have you heard that as well?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the consensus of what's going on. I think they've pretty much announced that Big Thunder Ranch is being closed.
Interesting. I think it's just interesting that that Toontown, is so early to be rumored to go, which needs heavy refurbishment, than to seemingly keep it and get rid of Big Thunder Ranch, which isn't a big, to me, I guess I didn't realize the scope of Big Thunder Ranch. I wouldn't think that whole area would be able to make it into Big Thunder Ranch.
I think it's taking up a lot of backstage. They're going to be expanding a lot into past the technical outside of Disney.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you said something about the Osborne lights over at Disney World being their last year, which actually kind of makes me a little sad.
Well, yeah, I understand how it would make you sad. It's a nostalgic thing. It's something that's been going with the studios for quite a while. So, it's going to be sad to see him go. It's been a very big part of Christmas tradition for, I think, a lot of people for many years. So,
yep. I was reading today that it had been open since 1995.
Yeah.
And for someone like me who has only started visiting the parks in the last 5 years, I've only been able to sort of experience certain seasons or certain events in Disney World and Disneyland, and unfortunately, Christmas season and the Osborne Lights have not been one of them. I don't know if that will happen this year or not, but if I don't get to see it, it will be disappointing, but there are a lot of exciting things coming, which makes me feel a little bit better. Well, along with Osborne Lights, the Streets of America.
Right. So if you're getting, if they're getting rid of the Osborne Lights, then also Streets of America are going to have to go, which is, again, disappointing.
For me, the only thing that I remember, though, in my several trips is Singing in the Rain.
You can't get rained on. There's Herbie the Love Bug, too. In the plaza.
I mean, there's some really cool details along the Streets of America that's, fun to look at. And, they change the windows in there and stuff like that every once in a while. But for the most part, it's a lot of dead space, to be perfectly honest, when it's not being used for the lights. So I can understand needing to get rid of that. It was a big part of the tour back when the park was basically all tour. And so now that that's no more at all, the studios doesn't really have that studio feel to it anymore. And so it kind of doesn't really fit so much anymore, I believe anyway.
That is absolutely true. Now, do you think that Streets of America is going to be more of the Star Wars land, or do you think it's going to be the also announced Toy Story land?
I believe that that's going to have more to do with Star Wars land, particularly that whole area back there. Do you want my opinion on where I think Toy Story is going and what I feel? Okay. I think this is interesting because I really examined the concept drawings and stuff for the Toy Story land. And from everything that I gather and from little bits and pieces that I've heard from here and there, they're actually going to be flipping the entrance to Toy Story Midway Mania to the back of the building, which is now a backstage area. And they're going to be taking out all that, and that's where the Toy Story Land is going to be. Encompassing backstage areas plus areas of the now defunct Backlot Tour.
Oh, R.I.P. Backlot Tour.
It was a shadow of itself. It
really was.
Time to go.
But Lew never got to experience the old Backlot Tour, which is also very sad.
Yes, I got to experience the one that they recently closed, which I loved. But I really wish I could have seen it when it was in its heyday, because it seemed like you really got to see even cooler parts of what a studio has to offer.
So moving on from that, did you guys get to see the PBS special, The American Experience with Walt Disney?
Yes.
I also saw it.
What did you guys think?
I really liked it. I thought it had some really cool archival footage. Is that how you say that word? Archival footage. Like one of my favorite things in all of Walt Disney World is One Man's Dream. So, I mean, obviously, when you're seeing a story about Walt Disney at Walt Disney World, it's going to be sugar-coated and, that kind of thing. So I was expecting a little bit more of the raw truth, but the thing I found a little bit disappointing was I felt like a lot of the contributors were people that hadn't actually ever worked with Walt Disney, and they were all the ones that seemed to have kind of more negative things to say about him. Was Walt Disney a perfect man? No, obviously. He had his faults. He was also trying to run a business, so anybody that's got that business mind isn't going to be all sugar and candy all the time. He had his faults, obviously, and it was also a different time back then, so... but I really did enjoy the documentary and especially enjoyed all the footage. So that's my thoughts on it.
I actually had a pretty similar take on it. There wasn't a whole bunch of new information that I learned. I know that basically sometimes when you talk to people about how you love Walt Disney World and Walt Disney in general, they say, oh, he hated, communism, and they bring up that whole thing. So it was interesting to delve a little bit deeper into that sort of side of him. I do feel like at some points they were kind of trying to stretch him to be more of a negative guy than he might have actually been. I don't know how much of his issues that he had were him, I don't know how to say it, but were him more or less not knowing what to do with himself, and just instead of actually being a bad guy. I don't think, I think they were almost stretching on those instances where the decisions that he made weren't necessarily the most popular.
I really enjoyed watching it because I love to hear people's stories. And like Lizzy, I really do enjoy One Man's Dream. And so I really felt like this was a really great expansion on that. And you got that perspective outside of the Disney parks. And so I really think it's important to hear from the people who knew him, who worked with him, but I did appreciate what the film or art historians could offer when it came to teaching me things I didn't know about maybe that industry. Maybe not necessarily Walt in particular, but the industry and the company. So I did appreciate that. But I did enjoy it. I loved hearing about his life and love of Marceline. I knew it existed, and I knew that there was more to it. So I was really excited to hear all about that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also liked the fact that they put a lot of Marceline in there. So, I mean, that was really cool. I know it always had a big effect on his life. I just didn't realize, that it's so late in his life that he went back there and all that stuff. So that was all new to me. That was really cool.
Yeah, I was surprised that they featured it as prominently and as often as they did.
Mm-hmm. So going back to the sort of more almost negative Nancy or negative Nellie aspects of this special, I know that Lizzy briefly touched on it, but after this aired, actually the Walt Disney Family Museum put out a statement that they were not exactly so happy as how Walt was portrayed. They actually said, "Ooh, no." The museum promotes the expansion or examination of Walt Disney's life and legacy and is encouraged at the ongoing interest in this incredible icon of the 20th century. However, the museum only supports the examinations of Walt's life that are based on fact, not on exploration, interpretation, or ex post facto psychoanalyzing, and further, which take into account, as all reputable and responsible biographical reviews do, historical context. So I know that they weren't exactly happy about those people that Lizzy mentioned that were not, that never actually worked with him, but kind of are, I know some people were like film critics and historians that never actually worked with them, which I thought was an interesting choice.
Right. Like I said, I appreciate what they can offer when it comes to talking about the industry and Walt and the industry and the company. But when it comes to speaking to Walt or to his projects, I had a hard time believing everything they said, because where are they getting that information? Whereas when you have someone who has worked with him telling a story, I know that that's the truth.
Definitely agree with you on that one. Since we are now getting into fall season, which is super exciting, it is time for my personal favorite time of year, the Food and Wine Festival, which I know I visited pretty much every year since like 2006.
Yeah, Food and Wine Festival. It's all right. I'm just joking. Anyone that knows me knows it's my absolute favorite time to be in the parks. It starts getting a little cooler, kind of, sort of. And then there's lots more grub and drinks to enjoy. So, yeah, I always look forward to it every year. I look forward to seeing what kind of new stuff they've got going on and revisiting some old favorites. It's just a really, really fun time to be out in the parks. Lots of cool people go out there during that time.
I know that there are this year going to be 29 new drinks and dishes to try, which of course I love. That's like the best part. In Scotland, you guys have to let me know what you guys think of this, because I was reading this and I actually wasn't hungry, and then I started reading it and I was absolutely famished afterwards. In Scotland, there's something called the Tipsy Laird, which will be a whiskey-soaked cake with lemon cream and toasted oats.
I'm there. Sounds fantastic. I don't hear any bad word in that whole thing that you just described.
Right? And then in the Farm Fresh area, they will have loaded mac and cheese with pepper bacon, cheddar cheese, peppers, and green onions.
That sounds delicious to me.
Also in Australia, the grilled sweet and spicy bushberry shrimp with pineapple, pepper, onion, and snap peas.
I love shrimp.
As do I.
Sounds like there's a lot of stuff going on in that. Berries and shrimp and peas. I don't know.
Well, it's bushberry. Does it?
Bushberry.
I have absolutely no idea.
Those come from berries, no?
No, berries come from bushes, not bushes from berries. But it will be sweet and spicy, which sounds amazing.
Well, I guess the sweet would be coming from the berries, I guess.
I guess so. Good call. In South Korea, Korean barbecue short ribs with steamed rice and cucumber kimchi. And apparently that's returning from 2010, so...
Would that be kimchi?
Kimchi, it's totally what that is. Sorry.
No problem. That's the thing. A lot of the times, like, these dishes and stuff, they have some, like, crazy words that not everybody knows. So it's kind of cool to...
I know. I feel like every time I go, I, like, point at the menu and I'm like, that thing.
Yes, I would like that, please.
Yes.
I've also had to look at what something is when someone orders it or Google it.
That's true. Sometimes when we're unsure if we like green onions or green peppers, we have to give it a Google.
Give it a Google. That's a good phrase. I've never heard it used that like that before. I'm going to start using that. Instead of Googling it, I'm going to give it a Google.
That's what I always say.
That's great.
Who doesn't love a good Google?
All right.
In Canada, there will be... Now, this doesn't necessarily sound good to me because I know I have a reputation as being a picky eater, but I am not that picky. In reality, there are just certain things that I do not like. But this caught my eye because of a certain aspect of it. This is returning from 2012. Chicken sausage with creamy polenta and -8 onion jam.
Ooh.
Right? I had
I like jams.
Yeah, that's
Onion
where
jams, bacon jams.
That's what
berry jams.
We be jamming.
preserves. The onion jam is what caught my eye on that. I am not, however, a fan of sausage. I know I'm strange. It's fine. In Hawaii, the tuna poke with seaweed salad and nori strings, which is a modified version of what they actually had last year, which we sampled and was amazing.
So I don't remember what the nori strings are. I'd have to...
I think the nori strings are the thing that's new.
Okay.
It's the modified version for this year. So they can say it's new, but it's not necessarily. They're also bringing back the New England lobster roll this year.
Can't go wrong with that. That's a perennial favorite.
It really is. So yeah, there's 29 new items on this list, and that's just a few that I picked out that looked particularly delicious to me. I really hope we can make it this year.
I know you will,
Lizzy. That's not fair.
I'm definitely planning on, I think this Saturday actually I'm gonna head down that way. So I got a couple friends in town in the area. They're going, so I asked if I want to join. I said okay. So maybe next podcast I'll be able to give you a full report.
I really hope so. Maybe you can check out some of the Eat to the Beat concert items that are coming up.
Oh,
which
definitely.
Again, I kind of went through the list and I noticed a few. I know Wilson Phillips will be there, and Starship, and Smash Mouth, and Sugar Ray. And of course, as with every year, I don't think it would be Food and Wine Festival if Boys to Men weren't there.
Well, they don't come every year, but when they do, I am there.
Speaking of reviews of things that you can attend that we cannot.
And that also have to do with food and drinks.
It's true.
Ah.
This is my best transition so far. everyone get ready.
Oh boy.
Which for those at home, Lew and I are actually stuck in Middle America. We live in the Midwest, and Lizzy was so brave as to move down to the big Florida in 2006. So she gets to do all sorts of fun stuff regularly, whereas we do not, being in the Midwest and not anywhere near a Disney park.
We can road trip to Marceline.
It's true. We do live in Missouri, so we can go to Marceline much easier than Lizzy can. So tell us what you got to do today.
Well, today I was lucky enough to head on down to Disney Springs to check out the newly brand open. It was only open about an hour or so by the time I got there. Jock Lindsey's Hangar Bar.
Ooh.
So do either of you know who Jock Lindsey is?
I know that he has to do with Indiana Jones.
That's true.
Ditto.
Okay. So neither of you, I'm assuming neither of you have seen the Indiana Jones franchise of movies, correct?
I've only seen the first.
I have never seen.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. You don't have to be a huge Indiana Jones fan in order to enjoy this location. Jock Lindsey is actually Indiana Jones's pilot. So the whole the bar itself is like aviation themed. There's a lot of cool. Yeah. There's a lot of cool like aviation items and stuff. I didn't spend too much inside the actual bar part. There's like an inside and an outside portion, kind of similar to how Trader Sam's is, but it's all kind of just one thing on itself. And there's two bars. There's a bar inside and there's a bar outside. And we sat outside and there's like a little protruding area where it looks like a boat that's sitting like out over the water. And so we kind of sat in that area. We ordered quite a few appetizers. It's basically, if anybody's been to Trader Sam's, I know both of you have on both coasts.
On both coasts.
Yeah. But it's very kind of a similar kind of concept where it's light plates, like appetizer type things, and then and really, really creative cocktails, a nice huge cocktail list. And they have a few beers and wines and such. But we had I didn't get the exact names of everything, but I had basically, it was a type of a deviled eggs that had crab in it. There was yes, there was chicken wings. And my personal favorite was the pretzels that was served on basically like an airplane server, and it had like a cheese sauce. A beer cheese fondue is what it was called, and a spicy mustard to go along with the pretzels. So that was really good. And very similar to Trader Sam's, the servers there all had like their little lingo for things. Like I asked for water and she brought me, she said it was an Egyptian ice or something like that when she brought it. So everything kind of had like, aviation kind of themed things to it. And the menu was just really interesting and fun. So there was a lot of crazy, cool cocktails, which I can't wait to try all of them. I only got to really try two. Only two. But I'm sure I'll be back because I want to try one of everything. So next time you guys are in town, definitely we'll make a stop over there if you guys want to and check it out. It's a lot bigger than Trader Sam's, so it's not as hard to get in.
Hard to get into.
Yeah, exactly. So
now, are there any Trader Sam's like specialty drinks with effects?
I was going to say, are there souvenir cups for sale? Are there embarrassing
Well, once again, I wasn't actually in the bar on the inside, so I don't know if they did anything like that. It's similar to how if you're at Trader Sam's sitting out on the patio and you order a beverage that might have something that happens, you wouldn't know because you're outside. So I don't know, to be honest. That's something else I'd like to eventually check out and sit inside. I know there's a lot of cool stuff to look at, but there are some souvenir glasses and mugs, but they don't have them at this time. So they're serving everything in their normal glasses. So.
Very interesting, because I know how much I hate when I order a drink at Trader Sam's and they yell.
Yeah, Lacey's not a big fan of being the center of attention for any reason whatsoever.
It's the curse of being shy.
Which is funny because she loves going to the Disney parks, which is where stuff like that happens all the time. You're always getting called out for stuff.
Except for the last time that we ate at 50's Primetime Cafe, and I really, really overstuffed myself by clearing my plate, and the waiter came by, said nothing, and I was so offended.
Well, it was a very traumatizing experience for her when we were little and we went and she didn't finish her food and they made such a big deal about it. She wanted to...
They yelled to the entire restaurant to look at me because I had not cleared my plate. And it was so terrible. It was one of the worst moments I've ever had at Disney World.
She was so determined. Ever. She wanted to eat there, but she didn't want anybody to make a big deal about how she didn't eat her vegetables, so she ate the whole plate. I thought she was going to barf. She turned green, and nobody said a word.
And then you just collected my plate and walked away. I was offended. I don't know if I think I might have been more offended than I was the time before when they actually yelled at everyone. And they were yelling that day. They were yelling at people, and I was not one of them. No one applauded my accomplishment of clearing my plate.
I did. I was very proud of her.
I was impressed.
And you should have been. It was a lot of food.
That's a feat. I did not finish my pot pie or my milkshake.
And no one said anything about that either.
And they didn't yell at me.
I know. I don't know how I get yelled at as a small child, and Lew, as a complete adult, does not get yelled at. It's not fair. It's part of the ambiance. All right, I think that just about wraps it up. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are obviously very new at this, and we're still working out a few of the kinks. But I do hope that you will listen again. Maybe in a couple of years we can laugh at how terrible this show was. There's only up from here.
That's true. Can't get much worse. No, I think I had a good time, so I hope. I hope that comes across to anybody that happens to be listening.
Yes, I very much hope that you tune in next time. And I think next week we are going to do this over beer cheese soup, and we will tell you whether or not the home recipe is anywhere near as good as actually eating at Le Cellier. Which I can't imagine that it would be, but we were going to try and give it a shot. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to follow us on social media, we are on Instagram at The Epcot. We are on Twitter at The Epcot. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/The Epcot. But if you would like to email us, then you will be emailing the Epcot Show at gmail.com. So I think that's all, guys.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. I had a good time. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
I gotta know.